Facebook goes dark, taking down Instagram and its messaging app. Pretty soon, people might actually have to call each other again. But should we really believe that this is a coincidence? Good evening, I'm Leland Vittert. It is Monday, and it would be almost impossible for someone to have a worse Monday than Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is having today. The founder's net worth dropped by $7+ billion, which might be the least of his worries. Last night, a former Facebook employee went on 60 Minutes to reveal internal documents proving what we already know. The company knows the addictive nature of social media and engineers its products to exploit that rather than protect the public.
Facebook has realized that if they change the algorithm to be safer, people will spend less time on the site, they'll click on less ads, they'll make less money.
Normally, such an exclusive news event would be widely shared on Facebook and talked about via the company's messaging app, WhatsApp. Influencers might even do Instagram Lives about it. Not today. The company's social media empire disappeared from the internet because of a server issue that lasted some 6 hours. Tomorrow, the Senate's going to hold hearings in Washington on Facebook and the whistleblower's accusations against the company, meaning Mark Zuckerberg could have an even worse Tuesday than he did Monday. Rob Lockwood is standing by to address the specific allegations against Facebook. We start with Chris Direwalt, political analyst in Washington. Chris, it seems as though we might actually get some agreement in the United States Senate tomorrow in that Facebook is terrible.
Well, certainly Republicans and Democrats have demonstrated for some time now that social media is their favorite punching bag. They love social media because it helps them amplify their message. It helps them raise money, helps them do all this other stuff. There's sort of nothing more in this American moment that could be more perfect than the fact that people use social media to complain about social media so they get clicks, likes, and campaign contributions to talk about it. It is the kind of issue that politicians love.
Do they love it also because it's sort of an unsolvable one that they can complain about and, as you point out, raise money about, but actually can't do much about? Or does tomorrow's hearing mean something beyond fundraising emails?
So the consensus that was reached, there's a lot of issues that fall into this category. Immigration is one that's notable, but there are several others that politicians decided a while ago that there's consensus that there's a problem, but they don't want to solve it. It's not in their interest to solve these problems or address these problems in a realistic way because it's just a good issue for them. It works well for them. Democrats want to break up these companies. They want to use antitrust laws to break up the companies, whereas Republicans want to use regulation, or that has been their tendency, to want to use regulation to threaten to control who gets on and who doesn't get on to these platforms. And in both cases, it's unlikely there'll ever be consensus about what to do, but there will be consensus that this is a good thing to yap about. This is a good thing to hold hearings about, because guess what? People will talk about it where? On social media.
From the sublime to the ridiculous. Jen Psaki from the White House podium today talking about it. Take a listen to your point.
In our view, this is just the latest in a series of revelations about social media platforms that make clear that self-regulation is not working.
You and I have talked about this a lot. The White House needs a win of some type right now. Is there any kind of win that comes out of tomorrow's hearing for Democrats that the White House then can pick up?
So look, tobacco, fast food, we could list all of the demons that American politicians, usually on the left, sometimes on the right, have talked about, are just crying out for regulation. They need regulation because they're making their product too attractive. Doesn't McDonald's know how delicious its cheeseburgers are? Don't people understand that these products are too good for Americans to resist? But I will tell you something right now. If we are too far gone as a people to be able to withstand the appeals of Mark Zuckerberg and Instagram, it's too late for everything anyway. The idea that these companies have to be regulated into providing a product that is less attractive, well, there's a lot on television. There's a lot in a lot of places that is too attractive. There are a lot of things that Americans engage in that are not good for them. This idea that these places must be regulated is a reflection of a battle for the future between the left and the right over who gets to control social media. Very few people are raising the voice that maybe none of these people are in a good position to control what we see, what we read, and how we consume it.
A good place to end, Mr. Steyerwalt. Good to see you, sir. Happy Monday.
You bet.
All right. Well, Facebook is facing a pretty long list of accusations, perhaps you could say an impressive list of grievances that the senators will have to talk about tomorrow. In addition to prioritizing profits, the whistleblower says the company removed safeguards for misinformation, dissolved a civic integrity team, and altered algorithms to cause divisiveness. But that's not all. Internal documents show the company is aware the platform is harmful to children's mental health. Users have also sued the company for using their names and likeness in advertisements, and Facebook is at the center of an antitrust lawsuit from the Federal Trade Commission. And the list goes on and on. Someone who's been quite vocal about Facebook and its problems, Rob Lockwood, privacy advocate, joining us from Washington as well. Chris sort of made this point, Rob, but I want your response to it. There's sugar in Lucky Charms, but we don't try to regulate or ban Lucky Charms from grocery store aisles or even from advertising to kids.
Right. And I think Chris was dead on when he said that politicians of both parties find issues they like to complain about when it comes to social media, particularly Facebook. I think there's a difference here. When you buy Lucky Charms, you're buying the product. When people buy stuff on Facebook, they're advertising to target you. You, the user, are the product itself. And so there's a difference between I want to go buy something or people I've never met are accessing dossiers that Facebook has compiled about me, you, and everyone else so that they can target us in ways that we're not even cognizant of. So I think there's a difference there.
Difference there may be, but still, there's no requirement that you have a Facebook account or an Instagram account or that you use WhatsApp, right?
Correct. And there are plenty of people who have researched Facebook throughout its history and said that Facebook spies not just on its users, but on people who don't have Facebook accounts. And when you think about Facebook, the information they're collecting isn't just the information you share, you like, or do with inside the platform, which is something that I think people are more comfortable with. Facebook's tracking cookies are embedded on websites across the web from media to consumers. So Facebook's tracking you if you have a profile, when you don't even know you're in Facebook or when you're not in it, in addition. And so Facebook itself is a surveillance agency. They're selling surveillance. They've built dossiers on people, and that's how they make their money. And when you think about all of the problems that politicians on both sides had, it's outputs that have to deal with how the inputs of surveillance are being exploited. Speaking
of being exploited, at least from the whistleblowers' complaints, Facebook has a unique way of, in their algorithms, have a unique way of, if not exploiting women, certainly being more dangerous to them. Take a listen.
And what's super tragic is Facebook's own research says, as these young women begin to consume this eating disorder content, they get more and more depressed, and it actually makes them use the app more. And so they end up in this feedback cycle where they hate their bodies more and more. Facebook's own research says it is not just that Instagram is dangerous for teenagers, that it harms teenagers. It's that it is distinctly worse than other forms of social media.
Important if true and if provable, but at the same time, companies are in the business of making money. Should we be surprised that Facebook is doing things to make more money?
No. So first of all, just that study, it's a horrifying revelation here, especially subject to that matter with girls and the anxieties that they have, especially teenage girls, with body image, self-image, self-worth that result from Instagram. This is a much more intense complaint from an older problem. We've seen it in media over the years, traditional media with advertising, especially in body image. People are too skinny. It has negative psychological impacts. But with social media, people are looking at their phones 100 times a day, and it's just magnifying this problem at a scale we've never seen, which makes it worse. In the old days, you could close the magazine and put it away. You could change the channel on TV. But with your phone, everything revolves around it these days. So you, in a way, you can't escape it. And that's what that research shows, and it's horrifying.
Real quick, I got 20 seconds. You've advocated for the problems Facebook has and talked about them. Is there a solution that exists that politically could be implemented or not?
Yeah, so again, I'll talk to this in simple terms. Facebook builds dossiers on people, and then advertisers use those to get at people. Facebook also uses those dossiers to filter information, to put stuff in front of you that will drive engagement, which in turn gets you to produce more content, which is more intelligence for those dossiers. If the government got serious about limiting the ability for surveillance willy-nilly, we'd be great. You saw Apple actually take a step a few months ago to implement it made it harder for Facebook in specific to track people because it gave you the ability to opt out. Opting out is good. If it was mandatory where you had to opt in on the front end on everything, that would make it a lot easier for society to be more sane.
Incrementally change things as well, and I guess control whether or not I got so many golfing ads. Rob, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, President Biden heads to Michigan tomorrow, a chance to escape Washington and rally grassroots support for his multi-trillion-dollar Build Back Better plan. Reasonable people can agree that plan is currently on life support. He's going to be stopping in Howell, Michigan, a small city of less than 10,000 people, about an hour northwest of Detroit. Show you a little bit about the demographics of Howell. 92% white, only 1% African American. 604,000 union members in Michigan. That's the 11th highest nationally. Moderate blue-collar Democrats will be essential for the president if he is going to pass his domestic agenda. Joe Trippi knows a lot about courting Democratic voters. He's worked on a number of presidential campaigns and Senate races. Good to see you, sir. We appreciate it. Why Michigan and why not AOC's district in New York or Ilhan Omar's in Minneapolis?
He's going to be making these trips in a lot of places, but I think you point out Michigan, unions was always the working class vote that he, lunch bucket Joe in the campaign appealed to. And he does need their support to get his agenda passed. So it makes tremendous sense. Whether it was Pennsylvania or Michigan, he has strength in both, but he's trying to build his agenda, get some success going here. And certainly the last few weeks and months haven't been all that great. I do think, look, Leland, and by the way, it's been too long since I've been on with you, but I do think, Leland, that what's part of this is all these, it's on its deathbed, it's going to die, it's on life support, are all true, but they're also true of the Trump tax cut, the Obamacare during the Obama administration. Any big bill like this, big agenda like this, it's ugly, and it's it's a bunch of chefs, and they're all cooking and arguing, and generally in the end, they survive all the pronouncements of their death, and that's what I think will happen here with Biden's agenda, the infrastructure bill, and the reconciliation bill for sure.
Well, the history lesson is important because it's real easy to get caught up watching the sausage being made and say, well, the sausage will never come out the other end of the factory. And in fact, it normally does. But I think reasonable people could agree, though, that the president's got a problem right now with centrist Democrats. He even admitted to as much. Take a listen to him being questioned by a reporter earlier today.
Joe Biden ran as a centrist and as competent. And what we're seeing is that he is neither, and people across the country are feeling less safe with Joe Biden as president. Joe Biden has now walked the plank for the socialist Bernie Sanders budget. He's man overboard, and he can't swim.
Different soundbite earlier.
Debt. We always paid what we owe. We've never failed. That's America. That's who we are. That's what it's called for. It's called full faith and credit of the United States. It's rock solid. It's the best in the world.
All right. Neither of those are what we were talking about. But
yeah, he wanted to use the one where he talked about he needs 50 votes and he only has 48. And he's right. He's just he's calling it like it is there. Look, this is what democracy looks like. It is about people disagreeing, both sides fighting it out and coming to some middle ground, some common ground. Usually that used to happen between two parties. In Joe Biden's case, it's got to happen within his own party. The Democrats have to come together because there just will not be any Republican votes for that bill. And the same thing is happening now with the debt ceiling. So, it's a tough task. He does have to. There are wings of parties. The Republicans have had those battles too within their own party, but the Democrats are going through one right now.
They certainly are. It will continue. Joe, thank you.
Good to be with you, Leland.
You too.
Thanks for having me.
He told detectives he knew they were cops when he shot at them because he wanted to harm them. There are the words of a 12-year-old.
The Florida deputies who were in a Bonnie and Clyde style shootout with 2 kids have been cleared of any wrongdoing. This is the body cam footage. Just a couple of minutes, our exclusive interview with one of the deputies behind that tree. But first, Communist China is making it clear it wants to take Taiwan. Could the democratic island survive an invasion attempt, or would the United States need to intervene? Congressman Michael Waltz on that next.
I don't see it happening right out of the blue. There's no reason for it. And the cost to China far exceeds the benefit. And President Xi and his military would do the calculation. And they know that an invasion, in order to seize an island that big with that many people and the defensive capabilities the Taiwanese have, would be extraordinarily complicated and costly.
I don't see it happening out of the blue. That was General Mark Milley on China's capability to invade Taiwan. He was talking back in June, but not out of the blue. Right now, we are seeing a huge number of aggressive acts by Communist Beijing against the democratic island of Taiwan. Reportedly, over the past few days, flying numerous sorties of Chinese military aircraft into Taiwanese airspace. This is the touchscreen to show you what we're talking about here. Here's Taiwan, obviously dwarfed by China. This is the democratic enclave, a very, very important ally of the United States, 1,300 miles here from the coast over to Taiwan. We're going to show you, though, where those Chinese planes went in the next graphic. This is what they call the air defense identification zone. So this is where the Taiwanese planes, mostly American-made jets, intercepted the Chinese planes flying here. Flip now to the next graphic. Okay, this shows you the idea of just how big the Chinese military is compared to Taiwan. 10 times as many troops, 5 times as many tanks, 30 times as much artillery, 5 times as many aircraft, and 7 times as many naval ships. You can see here, this right now is the key area to look at. The United States has a number of aircraft carriers in the area. Conceivably, that is what would come to the aid of Taiwan if the president made that decision. The Ronald Reagan with a carrier air wing in Japan. You have Pacific Command's group in Hawaii, and then the Carl Vinson import in California. Again, you could have an invasion and have to have a decision made by the president in a matter of hours. Florida Republican Congressman Michael Waltz served with the Green Berets, former advisor to then Vice President Dick Cheney, joining us now, sir. Number one, is there a chance we go to war over Taiwan? Number two, if it's invaded, should we go to war over it?
Well, I do think there's a chance that we go to war over Taiwan. If you listen to President Xi's speeches, they are more and more belligerent, and he's telling his country to prepare for war. If you look at what he just did to Hong Kong and abrogating an agreement with the British and with the Hong Kong government and just took it, and what was the world's response? Frankly, not much. You couple that with what he just saw in Afghanistan, where the United States backed away from a 20-year ally, and immediately Chinese television was broadcasting to Taiwan that America won't stand with you. So the question is, why does this matter to everyday Americans? Well, if they control Taiwan, if China controls Taiwan, they will also then control, I wish your map could have shown the oil and shipping and other lanes heading into Japan, heading into South Korea and the rest of East Asia, and essentially everything heading out of those countries to the rest of the world. They will essentially control about 40% of the world's GDP and about 50% of the world's trade. And that will be devastating to the United States as the global leader. That's why it's so important.
Devastating also to our allies as well. And you can imagine if the Chinese take Taiwan, what Vladimir Putin would think he could take. You point out how important it is, yet when asked at the White House briefing today, this is what Jen Psaki had to say.
Craft into Taiwanese airspace. So these strong statements from the State Department and from you don't appear to be listened to in Beijing. So what now? What next?
We are also in touch privately, conveying clear messages through diplomatic channels.
Okay, I was going to say the phone's ringing, but it doesn't seem as though the Chinese care.
Yeah, more strongly worded letters, right? Coming out of Washington.
Let me turn this around. What language or what would the Chinese understand in stop the flights into Taiwanese airspace?
Yeah, what they understand are additional arms sales to the Taiwanese government, updating their military systems, and raising the costs to the Chinese for this kind of belligerent behavior. They also understand the fact that we have 4 aircraft carriers, 2 American, 1 Japanese, and 1 British now conducting exercises. Look, the Chinese understand and respect strength. That's how they rule their autocratic country. But right now, I think they smell weakness and they see an opportunity, and they're taking advantage of those opportunities. And I think you're going to continue to see it after the Beijing Olympics in just a few months. Remember, Putin invaded Crimea just a few months after the Sochi Olympics, after the entire world, essentially turns their back to various abuses and waves their flag in Beijing's capital. I'm incredibly worried. Final point, Leland, is the Chinese Navy is outbuilding ours 5-1 in terms of new ships. Their average age is 11 years. Ours is 21. They now have 350. We only have 290. And they can concentrate all of theirs in one ocean. Do you know how many shipyard upgrades or new shipyards was requested in this massive infrastructure plan that we're now debating on Capitol Hill? 0 in the United States, and some of them are over 100 years old. We have 24 shipyards. They have over 1,000. And that's the scale of the Chinese buildup. And the kicker is they're doing it all with our money. So every time somebody sees made in China, all of these stimulus funds are rolling right through Amazon, Walmart, Target, and everywhere else to Chinese manufacturing. And they're turning it around and loaning it back to us in debt bonds and then building military that is on a track to dominate ours. That's what's at stake, and we need to wake up as a country.
Yeah. The spending by the Chinese is stunning. You're right to point out the gap is accelerating, especially with the Taiwanese and then with the United States as well. Congressman, great to see you. Thanks for taking time when you're on the road, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Leland.
They're called COVID protocols. This is the craziness in Australia. Why Americans should take note of the struggles with the mandates and this.
Put the gun down now!
A 45-minute-long shootout with 2 kids. You're going to hear from the man who risked his own life to not shoot those 2 gun-wielding kids. Welcome back. The sheriff calls them Bonnie and Clyde, a 12 and 14-year-old pair from Florida who escaped a group home, broke into a house, and then got in a gun battle with police using an AK-47. It sounds crazy. It is all true. First, newly released video from the shootout that happened in May, and then we're going to have an exclusive interview with the sheriff's sergeant, largely responsible for everybody, including Bonnie and Clyde, staying alive.
Hey guys, just hold behind hard cover. Let's not shoot these kids, man. Let's just hold on. Take our time.
I'm code 4. She's re-racking around inside the shotgun.
When Sergeant William Maxwell arrived at the house searching for 2 runaways, life changed quickly.
Stand by. She's got the AK and the shotgun. She's wrapping around the top of her neck. Shots fired! God damn it! Shots fired again. Female now has a pistol. Juvenile male has a long gun, so does the female. Stand by.
The gun battle lasted about 45 minutes. Deputies and their backup hid behind trees as 12-year-old Travis O'Brien and 14-year-old Nicole Jackson fired at them indiscriminately.
All right, let's not engage them anymore. Let's not challenge them. Just hold behind hard cover. We're just going to hang out here. Unless they come out and they're going to be compliant, let's not go ahead and try to escalate this any further, guys. Just everybody stand by.
But as the firefight continued, deputies started to worry about the kids fighting their way out.
Do not approach that door. She's got a shotgun pointed at that door inside on entry.
Just so I'm clear for everybody, nobody should be approaching anything.
All right, the boy eventually surrendered, and the 14-year-old girl did as well after deputies shot her. They both await trial for attempted murder of a police officer, among other charges. With that, we bring in Volusia County Sheriff Sergeant William Maxwell, who is the man behind the tree. Sergeant, good to see you. I was stunned. She is re-racking around in the shotgun. She has an AK-47. You sounded like you were ordering takeout. You were so calm. What was going through your mind?
It was definitely an experience. It didn't even seem like it was for real at the time. To see two juveniles going the direction they were going.
Were you searching for them?
We were searching for them. There was a bolo that came out for two missing juveniles. One had a severe medical issue that needed to be handled within 4 hours, or he would have difficulties beyond that. So we were able to track them to a house and found out they were inside the house at the time.
You found out they were inside the house, and then all of a sudden you're getting shot at.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What was the first indication to you that they had something other than a pistol?
They broke out a rear sliding glass door to try to run out the door. I engaged them. I told them to, put the guns down because I saw them in their hands at that time. They retreated back into the bedroom. Then the next thing, they started volleys of shotgun and pistol rounds at me.
How do a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old know how to operate an AK-47 and a shotgun?
It blew my mind. I can't even fathom how even a child could learn how to use those type of weapons or even assemble those type of weapons, because some of the weapons in the house weren't even assembled from what we were told.
And they had broken into this house for some reason. We don't know why.
Correct. Yes, sir.
One thing that's struck me, rule number one is a police officer, come home alive to your family.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. But you listen to that audio tape. You guys took it 45 minutes worth of fire, and throughout it, don't challenge them, don't approach, don't shoot, hold your fire. That seems to have violated rule number one to save the lives of the people who are shooting at you.
We at the Sheriff's Office, we focus on the preservation of life. And we know we have a certain job that we have to do every day, and hopefully we'll come home that night, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way. And we wanted to ensure that no matter what, that all the deputies went home safe, the juveniles went home safe, and also the general public didn't get into a situation where they were in harm as well.
Throughout that 45 minutes, was there a point that you decided, okay, we have to engage them?
Yes. There was one time, like was on the video, where she had the shotgun to the door, and I was concerned that our entry team that was going in were going to be engaged by that, and that would be a very bad situation to encounter. The next thing that led after that moment, they moved over to the garage area, which went out of my view. And at that point in time, I knew they were going to probably engage our deputies outside waiting to try to de-escalate the situation.
Did you have any idea when you showed up to the house that you were looking for these two kids? Did you have any idea that they were willing to use weapons and deadly force, or you figured we're going to just get the two kids and take them back?
That's exactly what I thought we were going to have to do. They would just come out. They would say, okay, we're caught, and we'd take them back to the group home.
So no idea that these rounds were going to start coming off?
Not at all. Not at all.
Wow. Unbelievable. I want to bring in Mike Chitwood, who is the sheriff in Volusia County, your boss. He wasn't able to make the trip up here to Chicago to deal with us. Sheriff, good to see you, sir, as always. Thank you. You talked at the time of this shootout. Obviously, Sergeant Maxwell couldn't talk at that, but you talked extensively about how these kids had been frequent flyers in the juvenile justice system and kept getting let back out. Hence, they eventually started shooting at your deputies. Are they in a place that they can't escape and hurt more people right now?
I think finally the system that is broken here in Florida
and almost cost the lives of my deputies and the lives of these juveniles, has finally stepped up to the plate to acknowledge their failures and try to correct it.
The system wasn't broken in a month. It's not going to be fixed in 3 months. Where are we?
We are working closely with the Department of Children and Families that when a young person is Baker acted, which is committed for mental problems 10 or 15 times, and after 2 or 3 days, they release them, trying to bring the appropriate care. These young people thought that this was Grand Theft Auto. This was a game. And obviously, it ended where I think Nicole, the young lady who we shot, discovered that, hey, this isn't like television. And I couldn't be prouder of our deputies. I mean, they did everything they could to preserve human life, to protect one another. And then there was a point in time when she came out of that garage and started becoming mobile. We had to do what we had to do.
Yeah, that's exactly what Sergeant Maxwell said. Sergeant, Nicole Jackson, is part of, I guess, the investigation, wrote an apology letter to you and the other sheriff's deputies she shot at. I was scared for my life. I don't know what I was thinking. I hope you forgive me and what I did. If you don't, I understand.
I think it's going to have to go through the process. Writing down words doesn't always mean what the true meaning is. I think going through with our great state attorney that we have down in Florida and the prosecutors, I think that's going to be able to find out if she's actually in remorse or not for the situation.
When the sheriff said that she felt like it was Grand Theft Auto, explain that. What does that mean? How do you get to that point?
It's just like the sheriff said. With these video games that are out here right now, a lot of these children emulate what they see on there, and they learn certain tactics that you wouldn't normally learn unless you were in some type of tactical nature. With the Grand Theft Auto,
I mean, it sounds like you're going up against a SWAT team.
That's kind of what it felt like. The way they were acting, the way their movements were inside the house, their mannerisms, everything they did, and even afterwards, how they acted, it seemed like they didn't believe that this was real.
And clearly, absolutely no regard for your life or the lives of the men who are out there. Sheriff, last question. Are we to believe that it's video games that are the problem or parenting that's the problem? And I guess part two of that would be, are these parents going to face any repercussions for the fact that almost 2 or 3 of your deputies were killed?
Leland, I think it's a combination of all the above. It's the 12-year-old that gives a statement to our detectives where he says, we were going to roll like it was Grand Theft Auto. And in Nicole's place, she really doesn't have a mother. I mean, she doesn't. And the 12-year-old is a product of foster care. So these kids are disposable kids that have a tendency toward violence, and they can't deal with reality, and the system can't handle it. They want to put round pegs in the square holes. And again, I will say this over and over and over again. I am so proud to lead these men and women. They are the epitome of law enforcement in America. They did everything they could to protect the sanctity of human life, even after she was shot. Deputy Maxwell, who took gunfire, was the first there, along with my lieutenant running the scene, to apply first aid, to get her to the hospital, which in no doubt saved her life.
As you said, exemplifies everything that's right with policing. Sheriff, you've also been a great advocate for these men and coming out and talking right after the incident and the shootout and explaining what happened and talking about them. We appreciate it. Sheriff, good to see you. Sergeant, nice to see you as well. Thank you.
Sir, for having me.
Glad to be able to chat. Thank you both.
Yes, sir.
All right, now we head to Australia, where they are pushing back on countrywide COVID lockdowns. And there's also some similar protests starting in America. What we can learn from this picture when we come back. That's people on the streets of New York City angry about vaccine mandates. As you can see, there were a couple hundred, if not thousands of them on the streets. The protests come after a week of stunning sound bites from Dr. Anthony Fauci about what draconian measures could come to America.
There comes a time when you do have to give up what you consider your individual right of making your own decision for the greater good of society.
If you think it's bad here in America, just consider the enforcement tactics in Australia. COVID mandates are turning Australia into a police state. Here's the evidence. A teacher was hauled off and arrested for sitting outside unmasked during a silent protest against COVID lockdowns and vaccine mandates. This video from Melbourne, Australia, but it happened all over the country. We've seen Twitter videos like this for a while. Sharri Markson is a journalist in Australia, out with a new book as well, What Really Happened in Wuhan, the cover-ups, conspiracies, and classified research. We're going to get to the book in a minute, but it seems as though Australia has already made its decision that you all don't have any personal liberties there.
It's been amazing how our civil liberties have just disappeared over the past year and a half, and it's happened, stealthily. You give up one freedom and then it leads to the next, and before you know it, you're not allowed to even sit on a park bench outside. And we've seen footage of police, warning mothers, breastfeeding mothers, for sitting down with their baby. We've seen people being handcuffed and arrested for just walking the next block from their house because they weren't wearing a mask. It's really, the police have been given so much power by the state governments that there has been a lot of overreach, and there's virtually nothing you're allowed to do at the moment in the states that are locked down. Sydney, where I am, and Victoria, we haven't seen people in months. We've been in lockdown since June. You can't have anyone over at your house. You can't, the retail, restaurants, cafes, everything are closed. You can get a takeaway coffee, but that's about it. And if you don't wear a mask, if someone's at your house, you face a $5,000 fine. If you go more than 5 kilometers from where you live, you get a $5,000 fine. It is extreme. And yet we've only started seeing protests in the past few weeks because we've just kind of accepted it. It happened so slowly that no one really realized the extent to which our freedoms had disappeared.
It sounds much more like something that would happen in China than in a Commonwealth country. We all sort of come at least from some part of the same thought process in terms of individual rights. Why are people in Australia so crazed about managing COVID to zero? What's the fear by the government in this need to have these draconian measures?
Right. So here is what has happened, and I think it's something that American audiences possibly don't understand. So we watched the rest of the world getting infected with COVID. We saw the footage on our news at night of bodies, being loaded into trucks, of Italy choosing who to treat, who should live and die. And yet we were pretty much COVID free. So it was kind of, no one wanted COVID to come to our shores. We had eliminated the virus. And so when there was one case, you're basically going into a statewide lockdown over one case.
It's so important to realize that lockdown in Australia is so different than the lockdown we experienced, which was sort of do whatever you wanted, but there were a few closed restaurants. With you, as you point out, you can't even go to people's homes. The book and the book's out, What Really Happened in Wuhan. And what is stunning to me is how much more reporting you've been able to do since the book came out in terms of the idea that China knew what was coming long before it actually did.
Yeah, so I think what I've been able to investigate and what's become clear is that there was an outbreak in Wuhan months before China admitted this to the World Health Organization. My investigation places it around mid-September is when the Wuhan Institute of Virology became aware that there'd been some kind of accident or incident, and that the authorities then stepped in to cover that up. I've also got a new report that's out today. It's based on official Chinese government procurement data that was analyzed and recovered. It had been virtually wiped from the internet, recovered by cybersecurity analysts at Internet 2.0 who've done work for the American and Australian governments. And they were able to show from this official procurement data that Wuhan was engaging in a buy-up of coronavirus PCR testing machines from around July 2019. Wow. So the second half of 2019, a massive buy-up of PCR machines, coronavirus testing equipment. This is extraordinary because it raises the question, was this Wuhan stepping up its virological
why buy these machines if you don't know
Yes.
there's something coming? Hey, incredible reporting. We're so glad to have you on and great perspective. You're welcome back anytime, all right?
Can I, Leland, before I go, can I compliment you as well?
We're up against a hard break. As much as I love compliments, that's how hard the break is. We'll see you soon. We'll be right back.
See you soon.
The missing fiance of Gabby Petito has reportedly been spotted in the Appalachian Mountains, specifically on the Appalachian Trail, which runs from Maine to Georgia. A hiker on that trail says he saw and spoke with Brian Laundrie. NewsNation's Brian Entin has been all over this story and was able to track down the hiker. How certain are we that the hiker actually saw Brian Laundrie?
Well, the hiker says he is 99.9% confident, Leland. Basically, he was hiking over the weekend. He's actually still hiking right now on the Appalachian Trail. It was early Saturday morning. He says he saw Brian Laundrie driving a white pickup truck, and he says he's for sure it was him. He says he's been following the story. He knows the pictures. I talked to this hiker. His name's Dennis. This is what he told me on the phone.
I called the FBI. I was looking again, and I saw a profile view of him. And of course, he was sitting in his truck, so most of the time I saw the profile view of him. And my heart, my chest, because it was just like that was the guy I was talking to 15 minutes ago.
And this man, Dennis, he's an engineer. He says that he is detail-oriented for his job, and he knows exactly what he saw. And he says he'll be meeting with the FBI. He's got a meeting set up for tomorrow, Leland.
No. Shows you the FBI is taking this seriously. You and I have been in the news long enough to know that eyewitnesses and spottings, as well-intentioned as they are, sometimes turn out, sometimes do not. This brings us now, though, back to Florida. We still don't have confirmation that Brian Laundrie's out of Florida and possibly getting help or possibly not. How does his sister and family still play into this?
Well, it's been interesting here at the House. Let me start out with what's been happening at the House here. You know, the protesters are outside every day, but today we saw a different kind of protest. These TikTok users actually raised money to charter a plane, a banner plane, and they flew it over the house here in Northport, Florida, the parents' house, for about an hour. The banner said, "Justice for Gabby, TikTok." What did it say here? Justice for Gabby, TikTok time's up, trying to send a message to the parents. So that was interesting. That was the first interesting thing. The second thing that happened today, Leland, is those protesters left the house here and they went over to the sister's house. Her name is Cassie, about 45 minutes from here. And apparently they drew her out of the house with their protests, and she ended up talking to these protesters and going in depth about everything for 20 minutes. We just got that video. We're working to turn it around. We're going to have it at 9 o'clock on NewsNation Prime, Leland.
All right, that's 9 o'clock Central Time, I believe. No, 9 o'clock Eastern. Hey,
Eastern.
There we go.
Yep.
Brian, great reporting. Dan Abrams is next.